All right. Good morning, everybody. Just let me know if you can hear me okay. Give me a thumbs up on the chat box there or something so I know the volume is all right. How's the sound? Anybody? Can you hear me okay? We'll get started here in a minute. Just checking in first. All right. Thank you, Benjamin. Appreciate it. Good to be with you all on this Saturday morning. Thanks for being here. Lena, glad you can join us. We'll go ahead and we'll join palms as we get started. And just bring the palms together at the heart. And if you choose to, repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And putting the palms down. All right. It's nice to be back with everyone again. I am back live from my parents' house. So not at temple today, but hoping to be back filming there soon. There's, especially within the Buddhist community and the passing of Thich Nhat Hanh, and a lot of people asking questions around death and um, meaning of life and things like that. And, the one thing that I keep coming back to a lot with people, in classes or individually, is just really trying to celebrate and find gratitude each day. And, I know that's kind of cliche and things that get thrown out there a lot. Um, but it really is a practice. It's one thing to uh, kind of just say that we have gratitude and appreciation for things, and it's another really to show it and express it. And nothing against social media posts and memes and things like that, but just throwing those things around there don't necessarily show expression of gratitude or appreciation. And so I've, for me, really found it a beautiful practice to just, when you wake up each day, to just remind yourself, take a few moments, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and just remind yourself of a few things at that moment um, that you're grateful for and that you appreciate. And if you find yourself throughout the day just, stressed out, anxious, worried, whatever it might be, then just repeat that practice. Just close your eyes. If you're not driving, of course, and just take a few deep breaths and just remind yourself what you appreciate and what you're grateful for. And I think the one challenge that so many people face is that it's really easy to just fall into a place of having frustration and disappointment in people and places and things. And we tend to fall into judgment mode quite a bit. So this practice of appreciation can be very useful. Um, Even if it's something that you set throughout your day, you have reminders on your phone for everything. Just literally grab your phone, which is probably a foot or less away from you, and just put an alarm on there that goes off and reminds you to find gratitude. At Deer Park Monastery, up in Escondido here, north of San Diego. I've never been to Plum Village in France, so I'm guessing they probably do the same thing there, although I'm not sure. But they have a mindfulness bell that goes off around the monastery, and so you're out in this huge monastery on acres and acres of land, and it's already peaceful and beautiful and quiet. And periodically throughout the day, the big bell will hit, and whatever people are doing at that moment, everybody just kind of pauses and stops. And it's an opportunity to just remind yourself to be mindful in that moment, appreciate that moment, and have gratitude in that moment. And so, any way that you can maybe recreate this for yourself, um, I think can be very beneficial and advantageous for your own mental emotional health. The stress and the worry and the questions, the confusions, the feelings of being lost, or whatever it might be. I had someone write in recently saying that they just can't find any meaning in life, and in those moments, it's really grateful to or really important to find gratitude, and then just go help people. Um, as soon as you start helping people, then you immediately have some sort of purpose because the people that you're helping need you and they rely on you. So um, always find people to help if at all possible and opportunity. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the meditation practice. For those who may be joining us for the first time, welcome. Um, And for those, if you don't see, there's a chat box there on your screen. You're welcome to chime in, say hello, say good morning. When we get to questions later, you can share them there as well. So we'll go ahead and start with the meditation practice. Again, for those joining for the first time, a couple things I'll tell you. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. Don't expect anything from this. If you're waiting for some grand aha moments or deep realizations, you'll be probably pretty disappointed. Um, Wherever you are, that's perfect. So if you're, in a chair at your desk, if you're on a couch, or if you're in a bed, hopefully sitting upright, I would prefer. Whatever your position is, you just want to be comfortable, knowing that you're probably at home or in your car, wherever you might be. There's going to be sounds around you. There'll be noise. There'll be things that seem like distractions, but these are not distractions. These are actually just what's going on around us while we sit and breathe. So the phones ring, the dogs bark, babies cry. That's just what happens. So our practice is learning to get quiet and still within it. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion or on a chair, often helps sliding to the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. If you're on any sort of couch or however it is, also just trying to sit up straight. Shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. What you look like and how you're sitting is not as important as your mind. So I will guide us as we begin, and we will settle into a little bit of silence. And again, most important, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually, just settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions, simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgment from the practice, just sitting, breathing. Where's your mind? Lost in thought? Return to breath. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. and with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move, and most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after, and compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's not from anything I said. It's not from how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than anyone else, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen and you react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives, but with a mind that's steady, clear, and focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Imagine going a day without being disturbed by someone. Imagine going an hour without being disturbed by someone. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is, especially those who are new to practice. There's this idea that if your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, that if you meditate, it's going to fix everything. And the reality is, all the meditation does is it creates time and space for you to slow down and become aware of what you think and what you say and what you do. And when you begin to change what you think and what you say and what you do, then your life becomes a lot more stable. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, say, and do, and learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else. I try not to complicate this practice. I think as I started talking today, the practice of gratitude, especially during time of loss, of sadness, of difficulties, the practice of gratitude is incredibly beneficial. It's so easy to look at the negative or what's wrong in your life or how others around you are not doing what you want or the pain and suffering of others. It's always easy to point the finger and blame at someone else. The real practice and challenge is to recognize what's your role in all of this. And once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But like I said, it's a practice. And during these times when people may be isolated more than normal, your life for the last 2 years has definitely been disrupted in ways that we probably have never even imagined. But here we are. And like I said, it's a wonderful opportunity to just appreciate all that we have and not focus so much on how we wish things were or how we want them to be or how they were in the past, because all of the thoughts about the past, um, while there's an awareness that's important, especially when we've done things that harmed others or mistakes we've made that have impacted ourselves or others in a painful way, there's an important part of, I think, evolving as humans to recognize things we've done in the past, but as they say, to not dwell on it and just continue to focus on what am I doing now? What am I doing in this moment? So with that, I'll pause. As always, I really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that you're sitting with. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning, and I'll respond to your thoughts, your questions. So if you are new, again, welcome. You'll see a chat box there on your screen. Feel free to say hello, share your questions, your thoughts. And like I said, we'll use the rest of our time here this morning for me to respond to that. Uh, all right. So, how long did it take you to really see your reactions as yours, not something happening to you? Um, that's a good question. I mean, they're all good questions, but I think my first response, which for me as a practitioner is always most important, very often people will ask questions like this where they'll say, "How long did it take for me to do something?" Um, and not just for you, but for anyone or everyone really. It's important to understand that how long it took me to do something or to get to a certain place with my practice is really irrelevant. It's I think we kind of grow up with this idea. We're raised with this idea of comparing ourselves. How old was your child when they learned to walk, or how old when they could speak, or we're in second grade and then we're going to graduate and go to third grade, and there's this constant idea that people are supposed to be at this certain pace. And my approach always with Buddhist practice is not how long something takes or doesn't take, but that we're actually putting in the effort to accomplish or cultivate what we're working towards. Um, so back to the question of how long did it take me to see that my reactions are yours? I don't even really have an answer to that. I personally never got into this place of, you know, saying, okay, well, when did this happen or when did that happen? Um, and the second part of your question of not something happening to you, I think most important with this question is to recognize that all of us every day have an opportunity to realize that we control our response and our reaction to the world. And some days we're going to be better at that than others. Uh, every one of us right now has the opportunity to spend today being mindful and aware of your reactions. Whether you've been at this practice for 20 years or whether this is day one and you know nothing about meditation or Buddhist practice, things are going to happen around you all day long, and you have an opportunity to control how you respond. Now, in time with practice, the ability to control our reactions as opposed to blaming others and thinking that everything around us is a mess, so therefore we're a mess. The longer you practice, the easier that becomes. There's one metaphor, one story I really like for this type of question, but one of them is if you think of a hot stove and you've got a pot of water, old school water on the stove and it's boiling. If you take the pot off the stove and you put it back on 3 seconds later, if you take it off when it's boiling, you put it back on 3 seconds later, the water begins to boil immediately. Now, if you take the pot off of the stove for 5 minutes or so, and then you set it back on the stove, it takes longer to boil. So we as humans we are the stove. And very often we're constantly on high heat and our water is boiling. So the meditation practice is an opportunity to take that pot of water off the stove and let it settle. And each of us has the opportunity to do that now, to do that today and every day. So the more time that you spend practicing cooling down, the easier it is to not be so responsive and reactive to things that happen around us. And eventually in your life, you'll recognize that there are days where you're really good at that, and there's days where you're not so good at that. And I hear all the time people say, my practice is slipping, or I fell out of my practice, or I haven't been practicing. And there's, I think for many people, a time where during their, I think, spiritual journey and their cultivation of meditation, mindfulness, Buddhist teachings, whatever you want to call it, there are times where you're more engaged with it and times where you're less engaged with it. And the more engaged you are with doing a daily meditation practice, the more engaged you are with spending time around people who are focused on living a life filled with kindness and compassion, the more interactive you are with the Sangha community, wherever you are, whatever that community may be, the easier it is to bring this into your day to day life. Hopefully that makes sense. The story is, and some of you have probably heard this, but this was probably 2007, I think. Um, and Yeah, 2007. And I was, I'd come back from the monastery, been back about a year or so. And I was driving. And, one of the things that I loved when I was younger and was always having the cool car, the convertible and the Mustang. And for me, it was, all that ego and attitude and just look at me, I'm a cool kid with a convertible. And I always thought that was so important. And so I'm driving one day and I'm coming off the freeway, and there's two cars merging into a one lane. And I got in front of the other car. And so there I am driving and the top's down, and my hands on the driving wheel and my arms up here, and the top's down, the windows down. And all of a sudden I just got like smacked with something on the head. And it what had happened was, there were three or four kids, probably high school kids, and they didn't like the fact that I'd cut them off, got in front of them. So they took like a 32-ounce big gulp and they threw it at me. And I mean, it was a perfect shot. If it's too low, it hits the side of the door. If it's too high, it just like sails over my head. But it hit right on the window uh, sill part. Broke open, top comes off, and I'm just like covered in Hawaiian punch. And my initial reaction, like my very first reaction, was laughter. I just laughed. I thought it was so funny that their shot was perfect. Now I laughed because I would have been the same 16-year-old kid pissed off, some punk kid thinking, I was so great. I would have done that to somebody else. I have done that to somebody else. So I knew what that was like. And I thought it was such a great shot. So I laughed. And then my thoughts immediately went to sadness. It went to sadness because I realized, like, wow, how sad is it that we've created a society, a culture, a way of life that just because one car gets in front of the other, that we throw things at people. And when I got off, I was in probably 5 minutes away from downtown Temple where I was going, and I get out, and I'm all covered in Hawaiian punch, and the car's all wet, and it was at that moment I just realized, like, wow, I didn't get angry. Now, if this had been years prior, um, I would have, chased that car down and taken out the baseball bat that was in my trunk, and there would have been no laughter and no sadness. It would have been a response that was filled with anger and hatred and rage. And I realized in that moment that there wasn't any of that. So it was a really beautiful, I think, point for me just to remind me that, wow, this practice is actually helping. So stick with it. All right, Vicky. When I fall out of my practice is when I realize how much I've fallen away from what benefits I gained from it. Go figure. Yeah, it's I mean, it's so common, and for Vicky and many people I've seen, for years, and it seems so simple, but it's like, I always, I just, to me, it's just showing up. It's really about just showing up, and when I work with the college kids. We have the group at San Diego State, and I always tell them, like, just show up. Once you show up, you're there. And once you're there, you have an opportunity to learn, to listen, to change. And I get it. Life gets in the way. We get hectic. But years ago, and a lot of you know him, Ken St. Pierre, uh, was really, he'd moved away and now is actually back in San Diego, but up north. And so he's not around as much and we're closed anyways. But, Ken for many, many years was such a huge part of the temple and there every day or, every week. And a really busy guy with a lot of stuff on his plate. And I still remember saying to him one time, he was during the Darn Bum Life program, and I said, how do you manage to do everything? I think I was concerned that he wasn't going to have time to commit to the program that we were running and do everything else. And I said, how do you have time? And he said, Jeff, you make time for things that are important. And it's so true. And I'll never forget the way he said it. And it was, a wake up call and a reminder for me also to always check in on how are we spending our time. And very often we get stuck in these routines. And, I don't know about you all, but I waste a lot of time. And I'm not suggesting that wasting time necessarily is a bad thing. I guess it depends on what you're doing. But there's a lot of time that isn't spent cultivating kindness and compassion. And so, if we waste 4 hours a day, well, do this kind of stuff for an hour a day. You can still waste 3 hours a day. And I probably haven't ruined your life. But it's so easy to just say, well, this is my routine and I get up and I go to work and I see my family or I see my friends and I go out. We get these routines and we almost fool ourselves into thinking that everything's okay. And very often, especially for people, I've worked with, a recovery community and people who are addicts for 25 years, especially for people who are addicts, we will replace one thing with something else. But you cannot replace spiritual practice. You cannot fill that with something else. Because whatever we are seeking, craving, desiring, that feeling that we have that things are just not right, the spiritual practice that you cultivate is what makes that okay. Because everything in our life we have, and this is the Buddhist teachings on impermanence, we lose things. We're not okay. We fill that void with something else. We think we're okay. Then we lose that thing and we're not okay. The practice is to recognize you don't need anything. So spend time every day reminding yourself you don't need anything. You don't need anyone. Whatever things you have, whatever people you have in your life, that's wonderful. But we don't need them to be happy and at peace. And the spiritual practice is really what's going to help you understand that. So thank you, Vicky. Benjamin, next steps after day one, where to go next? Next step after day one is day two, right? I've been leading this class, let's see, once to twice a week for the last 13 years. And I've called it Intro to Buddhism and Meditation for 13 years. And I could be leading this for the next 20 years, and I'll still call it Intro to Buddhism and Meditation. And people have been showing up for years. And especially for Benjamin, if you're new, and maybe you are, welcome. I'm guessing maybe you're brand new. This is day one. If this is kind of your first, kind of toe in the water type of thing, there is no next. There is just repeating the same practice every day, day in and day out. Right? It helps, and this is just for everybody, to not view Buddhist practice as something that we go through like a 6-week course. Right? It's not ninth grade that we finish, then we go on. It is a daily practice. If you are brand new to it, yes, there's books you can read. There's meditation communities, sanghas, Buddhist temples that you can go to. Um, there's different ways to get involved in what we call sangha and community, and you know, meet other folks who are also working on being nicer, kinder, gentler people. Um, but especially when I see it, and even though it's only, it's over text, chat, words, when I see the words next step after day one, where to go next, um, I'm always telling people to put on the brakes and just slow down. And very specifically with Dharma Bum Temple, and I don't know if you're in San Diego where you are, but we've been closed again for the last 3-4 weeks. We'll be closed for a little while still, till things settle down with the pandemic here. But lots of meditation Buddhist places online, in person, and so I always encourage people to explore them, check them out, see where you're comfortable. Every meditation Buddhist place you go to is going to be different unenlightened folks leading you in different ways. And none of them necessarily right or wrong, good or bad, just different. So, explore what's out there, where to learn, how to learn. But, the basic fundamental teachings in Buddhism are the Four Noble Truths. And that's the first thing the Buddha taught when he awakened. And he said, life is filled with dukkha, it's filled with suffering. We're going to suffer, struggle, be challenged every day of our lives. The second thing he says is, what's the cause? The cause is greed, anger, and ignorance. We always want more. We're angry at how things are, and we're ignoring the true nature of reality. And he said the way to overcome greed, anger, ignorance is through the practice of generosity, compassion, and wisdom. So give people time, attention, a smile, a hug, give people your heart. Practice compassion to overcome anger, and cultivate wisdom to overcome ignorance. That's the second noble truth. The third thing he said is the good news: there's an ending of suffering. There's liberation, freedom from suffering, nirvana, a happy day. And the fourth thing is the path to ending suffering, removing suffering, decreasing suffering. And this is the Eightfold Path. And this is the teachings of having the correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. So again, back to the question of what's next. Your entire life, you can practice nothing but what I just said. You can Google Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path and spend the next 10 years just practicing that. And that will be hard enough. So hopefully that's helpful. And if not, Benjamin, or if there's any more clarity necessary, feel free to chime in. Chaz, good to see you. Lisa, hello. Thank you. You're welcome. Any thoughts today on planning without expecting? Yeah, I mean, that's really difficult because the moment, in most cases with most people, the moment we start planning something, that we have an expectation tied into it. I'm kind of stating the obvious, but I'm just going to share a few things before I give you some thoughts. Really, nobody goes to make lunch. I shouldn't say nobody. I don't know what everybody does, but most people probably don't make lunch, plan lunch, prepare lunch, or cookies, or whatever you're baking or preparing. Most people don't do that expecting it to be terrible. I don't know. I mean, maybe you do if you're a terrible cook, but most people prepare lunch and plan it and think, even if you're making peanut butter and jelly, that requires planning. I have to go to the kitchen, wherever I keep the bread. I have to open up the cabinet, take out the bread. So I'm planning to have bread. If it's not there, then I'm going to be disappointed. Bread is there? Great. All right, first step, I got my bread. And then I'm going to get peanut butter and I get jelly. Well, what if you're out of jelly? Then you're stuck eating a peanut butter sandwich, and that sucks if you don't like peanut butter sandwiches. But it's your lucky day and you got peanut butter and jelly there. So you take out peanut butter and jelly, and then you start spreading the peanut butter, you start spreading the jelly, maybe one on each side, maybe together. Maybe you're like a goober grape kind of person, who knows, right? And so next thing you know, you got your peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you're eating it. And then you're judging it when you're eating it. Do I like it? Do I not like it? Does it taste good? Is the bread fresh enough? Is the peanut butter chunky enough? Is the jelly the right brand? I mean, we can't even make and eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without having an expectation tied into it. Now imagine things that are not downplaying peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but now imagine things that are important in life decisions, career choices, family choices, right? Big stuff. And as we start to plan these things, every step of the way, some are subtle without even knowing it, and some are huge. We have these grand expectations that are tied into it. An expression, and at least you've probably heard me say this, but something I learned years ago, and I've really worked it into my life on a daily basis. And it's a reminder that I tell myself every day to not expect anything from anyone ever. And for me, what that means, whether it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, whether it's dealing with people, whether it's making any choices, that instead of planning, just do. What I mean by that is there's obviously this planning aspect intellectually that has to occur, right? This thought process. But when we're planning it, the word planning has this heavy um, kind of connotation of, well, I'm planning it to be a certain way, so I better get something out of it, or it better turn out how I want. Doing it is just, you're just doing it. So when you're opening up the bread, just open up the bread. When you're putting on the peanut butter, just put on the peanut butter. When you're putting on the jelly, just put on the jelly. When the sandwich is made and you start eating, just eat it. But try to remove all of these expectations of how it's supposed to be. Um, we never know the outcome of anything, ever. No matter how much you plan, you never know the outcome. And this for me, I mean, you know, I have a really strong background and experience in being a perfectionist, in trying to control situations and outcomes and people. That was so much of my younger life, and I got really good at it. It's what drove me to Buddhist practice because it drove me insane. Trying to perfect everything, trying to win everything, trying to be the best at everything, try to manipulate and get life exactly how I wanted it to. It drove me crazy. And where Buddhist practice came in is it was finally something that I couldn't win. There was nothing to perfect. It's just daily practice of being kind and compassionate and finding gratitude and appreciation. So, with that being said, and someone years ago in a college setting, I'm not suggesting that every college student just drop out and say, I'm just going to float through life. That's not the point. Have goals, have aspirations, have things that you're striving for. These are very healthy, practical, conventional ways of living. But, and I'm not even necessarily suggesting, because I know it's not practical, that at least initially, that you don't expect it to go a certain way. The problem is not so much in the expectation, right? I mean, if you plan to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich and you expect it to be good, and it is, you got no problem. But if you plan to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you expect it to be good and it's terrible, there's your problem. So the problem isn't even in the expectation. The problem is in your attachment to the outcome being different from how you want it to be. So I think as a starting point, uh, my suggestion is not even to try to um, abandon expectations, because that's not so simple. Try to work on not attaching to the outcome. And no matter how things turn out, understand that that's how they turned out, and put your best effort into it. I mean, spread that peanut butter and jelly like you've never spread it before, as if it's the first time you've ever done it. And that's the beginner's mind, the Zen mind, beginner mind practice. So Um, just some thoughts. I hope that's helpful. Spent half my life eating peanut butter and jelly, so I can do a lot of metaphors around that. So thanks, Marisa. Um, Lisa, me too. Thank you so much. This is so helpful. Good, good, good. I don't think I've ever actually used that metaphor for that. So that was the first time I ever made that up. So I'm glad it worked. Uh, but it's a tough one. And, I don't, and both of you know me and a lot of you know me. I didn't, definitely not trying to like compare peanut butter jelly sandwiches to major life decisions. But if we can start with the simple things, like go make a sandwich today and see like how attached you are to the outcome of it. Um, and that'll just remind you like, oh my, this is going to be really difficult with important things in life. So those things I think remind us that we need to keep practicing. So, all right. Anything else? We'll do one more question if anybody has or wants to share. Oh, and also I should add, um, planning's required. I don't think I need to make this. Hopefully, this is obvious, but maybe just for anyone who's new or has never sat with me, um, planning is required in everything we do. So I'm not suggesting that we don't plan. I mean, this class today, I had to plan. I had to plan, turning the computer on and setting up the YouTube stuff and, get the camera in the right place so you're not like watching it like this because that would be weird. So there's planning in everything in life. So I'm not suggesting that you don't plan. Um, just that don't attach to the outcome when it doesn't work how you want it to. Any final thoughts or questions before we wrap up? I hear the attachment to things beginning organized, inside questions about expectations, or not following you there. If you can clarify that for me. I hear the attachment to things beginning organized, inside questions about expectations regarding. Yeah, I'm not following the question, unfortunately. Maybe rephrase that. I hear the attachment to things being organized, inside questions about expectations regarding planning. Still not following. I'm sorry. How about this, Sheila? Let's table that for next time, since we are at 12 o'clock, and I just want to be mindful and respectful of people's time. So we'll jump into that next time, if you don't mind. We'll go ahead and join palms as we close. We'll do a transfer of merit. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained be transferred to the more than 4 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic and to their family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right. Thank you for being here. Just a couple quick announcements before you head out. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 50 show up. Those of us who lead, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So every night we have different practices going on. As many of you know, we closed for 16 months when the pandemic first hit. We moved everything virtual. July, we opened up again on a partial schedule. We were open for about 5-6 months. And January 2nd, we closed again. So we've returned everything to virtual. So whether it's on YouTube or Zoom, just jump on the temple website. and you'll see the schedule there. Everybody wants to know when we're opening. Do we have a plan to open? Do we have a date to open? I'm pretty sure my response around expectations probably can answer that for you, but we have no plan and no expectation. We are going day to day, and as always, making decisions based on what we feel is the safest and healthiest for the community of people that we bring together. So, and right now, we are not at all comfortable bringing 40, 80 people together in a little temple space. So, we'll stay virtual until we feel it's safe. Um, and Other than that, same thing. Buddha for You is also closed. If you do need anything from there, you can go to the website. And you can schedule to have anything shipped, or you can schedule curbside pickup at Buddha for You. So, uh, other than that, thank you all for being here. Please be safe, be well, be kind, wear a mask, stay home as much as possible, and let's just keep trying to get through this healthy and safe. So, be well.